Hi everybody, today is August 31 and in this video I want to briefly reflect on the customer interviews that I have been doing in the past days. So as I learn my students, when you have identified a pain point, it's important to get a deeper understanding of that pain point by actually engaging in customer interviews. And just like my students, given also that I have limited time, I have not engaged in real customer interviews, but at this stage I have relied on a specific GPT called the Customer Interview Trainer to do quite a lot of customer interviews. So I did like 10 interviews with different types of people. And so given that I have the pain point of introverts that don't like to go to conferences because conferences are not really tailored to them. So I interviewed both conference organizers, I interviewed people that can be considered as introverts. I even tried to interview an expert of introvertness, so to get quite a deep understanding of the pain point that I want to explore. And so let me briefly show you how I used this particular GPT, and then I will also summarize my main findings that emerged out of these interviews. So here you can see my GPT called the Customer Interview Trainer, and this is really GPT that I trained to be very good in customer interviews. So it's heavily based on a book called the MOM test. So I gave it quite some knowledge from this book, and then I gave it clear instructions to act as a particular customer being interviewed by a founder. So here you always play the role that I'm the founder, and then the GPT will play the customer. And so if you enable this GPT, and I will add a link to the YouTube description, it will ask you two starting questions. Yeah? So which pain point do you want to explore, and what is the persona that you want to interview? And so then you need to answer these two questions. So in this case, I said, look, I want to explore the pain point that I want to explore is that tech-oriented professionals that struggle with their introvertedness in terms of making a career. And the persona that I want to use is a 25-year-old ICT person that is working in a scaling company. Yeah? And then I activated the voice mode so that you can really engage in a conversation. And so here you can briefly see now the full conversation that we had. So you can see I could ask questions and it would give me an answer. Question, answer, question, answer, and in that way I could move forward. Yeah? So in that way, with this voice mode, in my experience, you can engage in quite nice interviews. Again, the only problem is a bit, you could see it maybe here, it always says, yes, you're right, yes, absolutely, yes, that makes sense. So again, also here, getting it to push a bit back is sometimes a bit difficult. So that was my only limitation. So let me briefly now explain you what I actually learned from these interviews. So for me, there are kind of 4 key learnings by exploring this pain point of introverts struggling with conferences. And the first one, based on interviewing some conference organizers, is that actually these conference organizers are not really aware of the problem. Yeah? So the ones that I interviewed were a bit like, oh yeah, oh that's might be a problem, but you notice that they did not really think about it, because I think often conference organizers themselves are extroverts. Yeah? That's a kind of selection issue. And on the one hand, that's a good thing because it seems to be that that problem is not being addressed, but it also seems to trigger a challenge because how will you convince people a certain value proposition if they are even not really aware of the problem? So here I already see some issues. Another issue is that, okay, some conferences seem to try to kind of accommodate towards introverts by creating quiet zones or having a more focus on one-to-one interactions, but it seems to be that they rather pay lip service. Yeah? So they're not really addressing the fundamental problem. It's a bit like a vegetarian that gets a vegetarian dish by simply leaving out the meat. That was a bit my feeling. So I think a more radical solution is necessary. When I looked from the introvert perspective, I think one key learning is that what was really emphasized was that these people need to recharge, and I can justify that myself. For me, recharging during conferences is very important, but that also sometimes triggers kind of a social stigma because that often means that you're not present and that people might conceive that as being asocial. And another thing that really emerged out of the interviews was that introverts really need to manage their energy levels. So they very consciously have to think about, when do I do what? How much energy will it cost me? And this was something that really struck me, that they are so kind of purposeful thinking about how to manage my energy levels. So this was kind of some of the core learnings by delving deeper into my pain point. And in the next video, I will try to explain what I have done with this pain point to create a kind of first elevator pitch on the pain point that I want to address. But that I will explain in the next video. Okay, thanks for your attention. Bye.